welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got something really interesting. It's a set of Indonesian lesson notes designed specifically for lower beginner students.
Right. And these aren't just, dry vocabulary lists.
No, exactly. We're aiming to go a bit deeper. It's about understanding some language basics, sure, but also getting a real feel for what an Indonesian classroom environment might be like.
We're looking at the actual materials, dialogues, vocab lists, sample sentences, grammar notes, even little bits on cultural context. It's a great little snapshot.
It really is. So for you, the learner, our mission today is to, efficiently pull out some key Indonesian language fundamentals and give you that sense of a beginner classroom.
And honestly, looking through this, there are some pretty neat nuances we noticed, things we're excited to unpack.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's dive in then.
Great. A good starting point is usually a simple interaction, and we have one here. A short dialogue between a teacher, Mrs. Evie, and a student, Agam.
Okay, let's hear the Indonesian first.
Mrs. Evie, buka buku kalian pada bab empat.
Agung, halaman berapa?
Mrs. Evie, halaman 102. 102. Nomor 11 sampai 10. Itu adalah PR kalian.
Agung, apakah ini untuk hari Kamis?
Mrs. Evie, ya dan akan ada ulangan hari Jumat.
And now let's run through the English version.
Mrs. Evie, open your books to chapter 4.
Agum. Which page?
Mrs. Evie, page 102, numbers 1 through 10. That's your homework.
Agum. Is this for Thursday?
Mrs. Evie, yes, and there will be a test on Friday.
Okay, so straight away, some really practical vocabulary jumps out.
Definitely. You see Bab chapter, clearly a section of work, then kalian.
Right, which means you, but the plural you. That already signals it's a classroom, doesn't it?
Exactly. And halaman for page, then of course ulangan, exam or test. A familiar concept for students everywhere, I imagine.
Absolutely. And other key bits like no more for number, berapa asking how much or how many.
Buku for book. Yeah. And sampai, meaning until. Even just with those few words, you start to piece together the classroom instructions.
It's quite efficient. Phrases like, buku buku kalian pada bab empat. Open your books to chapter 4. That's clearly a teacher speaking to the class.
Right. And Agung's question, halaman berapa, which page? Super simple, super useful for any learner straight away.
And the homework is laid out clearly. Halaman 102, no more 1 sampai 10, page 102, numbers 1 to 10. Very direct.
And we get the schedule too, PR. That's the homework for Thursday. And the ulangan, the test, on Friday. Basic but essential info.
Okay, let's dig into some of these words a bit more. How they're used. You mentioned the phrase ada ulangan.
Yes, so ada. The notes explain it means to exist.
So ada ulangan is literally like there exists a test, or just there is a test. Seems pretty fundamental.
It is. It's the basic way to state existence. For simple statements like there is a test, ada is definitely your go-to.
Interesting.
And what's really key here is the difference the notes point out between ulangan and ujian.
Ah, right. They both translate as test or exam in English.
Right.
Roughly.
Roughly, yes. But ulangan seems to cover your regular classroom tests, quizzes, maybe even school-level finals. Ujian, however, that's reserved for the bigger stuff. Think national exams, university entrance exams. Much higher stakes.
That's a really useful distinction. So context is everything. If a student asks, besok ada ulangan apa? Was the test for tomorrow? They're probably talking about a regular class test, not a massive national exam.
Precisely, understanding that scale is important.
Okay, what about buka, meaning to open?
Yes, and the grammar notes highlight something crucial here. Buka is used specifically as a direct command.
A command. So you only use it when you're actually telling someone open this.
Exactly. You wouldn't use it to just describe, say, a door that happens to be open.
So how would you say that? Like the door is open.
For that, you'd use terbuka. The notes give the example, pintu itu terbuka. The door was opened, or the door is open. The ter prefix often suggests a state, maybe something done by an unknown person or just naturally.
Ah, I see.
But if you want to tell someone, open that window, you'd use the command form, buka jendela itu.
Got it. So buka is active, telling someone to do it. Terbuka describes the state of being open. That's clear. Okay, let's shift to some of those common classroom phrases in the grammar section.
Right. A key one is kumpulkan PR kalian. Collect your homework. Let's break that down.
Okay.
Kumpulkan comes from the root kumpul, which means to gather or collect. Adding the suffix kan makes it into an instruction, a command.
So it's literally gather your homework. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And we already saw PR is short for Pekerjaan Rumah, homework.
And the notes also mention PS for Pekerjaan Sekolah, schoolwork, and kertas ulangan for test paper, useful classroom shorthand.
It shows that efficiency again, doesn't it?
It does. And we see buku kalian, halaman 10 again. Seems like a standard instruction, emphasizing kalian, the plural you.
Definitely. Now, this next one seems incredibly useful for any language learner. Ini maksudnya apa?
What does this mean? Yes, absolutely essential. Your go-to phrase for asking for clarification.
And the notes say the teacher might respond by rephrasing, maybe giving an English equivalent.
Or just explaining the meaning in more detail. It's fundamental for getting unstuck.
And then there's bagaimana cara mengeja kata ini. How do you spell this word?
Which might seem less crucial if Indonesian is mostly phonetic, but think about names or maybe foreign loan words. It still has its place.
Good point. Yeah, names especially. Okay, so we already saw buku-buku kalian pada bab, empat, and apakah ini untuk hari Kamis from the dialogue. What are the examples that the notes give?
Well, building on what does this mean? There's kalima ini maksudnya apa?
Ah, so what does this sentence mean? Same structure, just applying it to a whole sentence instead of one word.
Exactly. Then there's a very typical classroom phrase, siapa yang tidak hadir?
Who was absent? Standard roll call stuff.
Right. And finally, one that hopefully learners won't need too often, but it's realistic. Saya lupa mengerjakan PR.
I forgot to do my homework. We've all been there, I suppose.
Haha, maybe so. Now, let's pivot slightly to the cultural insight section. This focuses on the Indonesian exam system, which gives us a broader picture.
Okay, so first up is UN or UNAS. That stands for Ujian Nasional, the national exam.
Right. This is a big deal. It's a standardized test for students in primary and secondary school across Indonesia.
And its purpose?
Well, the notes say it's run by the Center for Educational Assessment, and the goal is to try and maintain a sort of equal standard of education quality across the whole country, which is obviously very diverse.
That makes sense. And it happens when?
Usually around May or June, lasting about 3 days. It's definitely a significant milestone.
Okay. And distinct from that is the Ujian Akhir semester.
Yes, the end of semester examination, often just called UU, which is short for Ulangan Umum.
Ah, Ulangan So it uses Ulangan like the classroom test word.
It does, but these UU are the end of semester ones. They're usually prepared by the school teachers themselves, not nationally standardized. They typically run for about a week.
And these results are pretty important too.
Oh, absolutely. The notes stress that the results of the UU determine if a student passes that semester and, crucially, if they naik kelas.
Nikelas, I love that phrase. The notes say it literally means up class.
Exactly. But it means to advance to the next grade or to make it to the next grade. It's a great little linguistic insight into how progression is viewed.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We started with that basic classroom dialogue.
Pulled out some core vocabulary, looked at practical phrases.
Right, like how to ask what something means or how to spell a word.
Yeah.
And then we got that insight into the exam system, the Ulangan versus Ujian and the national exams.
I think some key takeaways were definitely that distinction between Ulangan and Ujian, the scale and formality, and understanding naik kelas up class. I think that adds a nice cultural layer.
Absolutely. And for you, the learner, hopefully this deep dive gives you a solid foundation, some immediately useful words and phrases, yes, but also a bit of context for the Indonesian learning environment itself.
You know, it makes you wonder, how does having a major national exam system like UNIS actually shape the teaching and learning day to day, compared to systems without that kind of centralized final assessment?
That's a really interesting point to consider. How those big structural things influence the classroom experience and maybe even student opportunities down the line. Definitely food for thought. But for now, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe.